Hey, beautiful people! Today I'm going to teach you the remaining 4 techniques. Don't worry if you missed out the first part of the video. I'm going to link it down in the description box below. Don't forget to go and check it out and give it a big thumbs up and watch the video till the end. I'll be showing you a lot of paintings that I did with all these 12 watercolor techniques. Now let's move on to the texture technique. For that, I have taken a piece of paper. This is actually a chocolate cover. You can go get any kind of plastic cover that you've got and apply some pigment or paint over it. Just some random paint, okay? Just give it some random pigment over it and invert it and tap it gently. Spread the paint across just like that. Smooth and gentle and remove it. And ta-da! You got this texture technique, and you can write awesome codes and you can do an amazing write-up over this texture technique. So before moving on to the splattering technique, let's go and check if the tapes have dried over the paint. So once after it is completely dried, gently peel off the tape away from the paint. And look at it, isn't it amazing? And now let's peel off the masking tape away from the moon. And look at that cute moon. And that's how masking technique works. And now let's move on to the next technique called splattering. So for splattering technique, I'm going to use violet color and just giving it some random strokes, adding in more pigment and just giving it a random strokes from left to right and left to right. I just wanted this place to be covered. Just covering all the edges and corners. So now everything is neat and pakka. So this has to dry. So meanwhile, let's move on to negative painting technique. So this painting technique really requires a lot of patience. So this also divides into 3 parts. The first part is going to be the lightest painting. So I'm just giving a flat wash of the first layer. And this is the lightest blue that I have taken. Same as such, covering the edges and the corners. So meanwhile, this has dried. This has to completely dry. For this, you really require a lot of patience. So meanwhile, let's jump into sponge technique. So for sponge technique, you can use any kind of sponge. Pores in it, you can just poke some pores. And that pose has to be harsh so that you can get the actual sponge technique. So I've taken a piece of sponge over here and I'm going to just dab a little amount of paint into my sponge and dab, 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 dab. That's going to happen in the sponge technique. And this will be really great to paint the bushes or sands on the beach. This technique really works amazing for me to paint sands on the beach. Watch till the end. I'll be showing you a lot of paintings that I did with all these 12 techniques so you can relate and recreate. So meanwhile, let's move on to negative painting technique. I hope the first layer is completely dried. Please move on to the second layer only if the first layer is dried. So I'm going to give a tiny leaves outline. So if you're so sure about what you're going to paint, you can just randomly go with your paintbrush. But if you're not sure about what you're going to paint and how it is going to turn out, please just use your pencils and give it a small outline of what you're going to paint. So now I have completely done with the outline. So now let's grab some darker pigment and paint away from what you have drawn. In simple terms, don't touch inside or don't go inside the pencil marks. and that's how you get it covered. So before applying the third layer, this second layer has to be completely dried. So meanwhile, let's get back to splattering technique. So for splattering technique, I'll be using both toothbrush and the normal brush. So for toothbrush, load some paint and just splatter it over the surface of where you're going to paint. And for the normal brush, just grab another piece of brush or another piece of wood and just dab it on that, and that's how the paint sprinkles over that. So please have some tissue so that you don't disturb any part of the painting. And that's how I do the splattering technique, and that's how you get the splattering technique. And you can paint amazing stars, beautiful galaxies with this amazing technique called splattering. Let's move on to the negative painting since the second layer has been completely dried, and now I'm going to give some small outlines of the leaves wherever there is empty spaces. Now load the darkest blue and paint it away from what you have painted and what you have already painted in the first case, which is the lightest leaf. Ta-da! We got the negative painting, and I'm going to show you a few examples of the paintings, and this is how you get the negative painting of light, lighter and lightest color. And for splattering technique, there are million stars in this beautiful galaxy painting, and this painting was done with the splattering technique, and another painting with the splattering technique of a beautiful abstracts of million stars. Right now I'm going to show you all the paintings that I've done with all these 12 watercolor techniques right from flat wash. So this is how the flat wash looks like. Right from top to bottom, the color remains the same. No lighter or darker version of it, just the same color. Now let's move on to the gradient. And this is how the gradient looks like. The top looks darker and the bottom goes lighter. And this is also another gradient where it comes from lighter to darker. So here's how the bed on bed techniques works. Beautiful clouds and amazing skies can be done with this technique called bed on bed. And fourth technique is dry brush technique. I hope you can see all these textures in the hilltop that I've done with this technique called dry brush technique. Let's move on to another technique called layering. This amazing painting was done with coffee, and that's how it works. This is called masking technique. I hope you can see this big ball of moon was done with this technique called masking. And the seventh technique is lifting. So hope you can see it. I've shown this already in the part 1 of the video, how the light invades into the darker painting, and this is an amazing technique to paint beautiful sun rays and sunbeams, of course. And next is dabbing. So I hope you can see all these bushes. Everything is done with this technique called dabbing. For the ninth technique, I am a newbie for this technique, and I've not done so much of painting with this technique. Very soon I will be playing around with that technique too. So splattering, as I showed you already, you can paint thousands and hundreds and thousands of stars with this technique called splattering. So for negative painting, this is the painting that I've done where you can see the deeper woods inside becoming lighter and the closer view has the darker painting. And the final technique, that is sponge technique, and all these beach sand was done with this amazing technique called sponge technique. I hope you can see the closer view of it. Yeah, that was a wrap of all these 12 watercolor techniques. Hope you enjoyed this video, and please let me know which technique that you love the most and which technique do you want to learn if it was new to you. And please let me know if you want me to make more of these contents in the comment section. Meanwhile, if you like my video, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe and press the bell icon so you'll be notified to check on what is new. And I hope you love this video. Please learn something new today. Hope it helps you in some way. Happy painting and God bless you. Much love always from Jane.